as we begin our conversation on Manchester United on the Transfer Insiders tonight. Bit of news from them today. Number of players leaving the club, but one of them who could be on his way out, might be staying, is Jonny Evans, the veteran defender who came back for his second spell at the club last year, played 30 matches, did the Northern Ireland International. He actually was one of the players who did impress. We weren't expecting him to even sign for Manchester United, but he did, and I think he did himself real credit. But for me as a Manchester United fan, I'm wondering why Jonny Evans is having his contract extended. This has nothing to do with how he performed on the pitch, by the way. This is me just wondering whether the overhaul in the squad that we expected is going to come. I get it. He's a fantastic character, a great person to have around the football club. If that's the role that he's going to play,
is it simply just you know, sometimes what you need, particularly when you have a squad that isn't necessarily performing as well as you want it to, you need somebody who is representative of the previous era, somebody who sets the standards, somebody who knows what is supposed to happen at that football club. It isn't always a bad thing to have somebody like Jonny Evans. Look, I certainly think it's a bad thing if he is your main starting centre-half. I think that's a real issue. But having him around the club to set the standards, to make sure the young players know what's expected of them, representing an institution like Manchester United, is there a justification for it on those grounds?
I don't think so. I don't think at a club like Manchester United, the size of the football club, that players should stay within the playing squad just to perform that role. I do think the club needs to be going on to a high level at all times. So if you're going to have a homegrown player in the squad who's come out of the academy, who's 18, 19, 20 years old, who you think could be the great centre-back of the future, I'd rather that place in the squad and that money was put towards them.
No, I do know what you mean. I just think that...
I think there should be coaches at the football club. I think there should be ambassadors at the football club. I think the manager, the influence, but also the understanding of the playing staff at the football club. I don't think you necessarily need a 36-year-old Jonny Evans to be able to tell those players what it means to play at Manchester United. If you do, that's a serious issue. But I do think there's enough experience in that changing room at this point in time that they don't need Jonny Evans to play that role. They're also trying to keep Tom Heaton in the squad as well. Again, another player who isn't going to play much. No. Tom Heaton, as we know, knows the football club, of course. That is where he started in the academy at Manchester United. And I know a lot of clubs want homegrown players so they can invest on foreign stars, etc., in the squad and balance their numbers there, their quota there. But for me, it's not that I don't want Jonny Evans to stay at the football club, because I think he did himself proud. I think he probably my favourite Manchester United player this season. But ultimately, the club now needs to take a step forward, and that means overhauling the squad. And I think that means in every single position. I don't know what message it sends to extend Jonny Evans.
The weirdest thing as well, extending him now, before a decision on the manager has been made. I don't necessarily think that works. It doesn't chime with the way that I feel like things should work at a football club. If Erik Ten Hag is there for the foreseeable, if he's going to be backed, if he's going to get a new contract even, ask him what he thinks about Jonny Evans and let that be the deciding factor as to whether Jonny Evans stays at the club. I don't understand why you'd give Jonny Evans a new contract and then you potentially bring in a new manager, whether it's Mauricio Pochettino or Gareth Southgate or whoever it is, who doesn't want to work in...
Well, are Manchester United bringing in a new manager?
Well, this is the thing. I don't know, and I think there's two ways to look at this. It's very difficult because, on one hand, it doesn't make any sense. They should have made a decision. There's no way that a 90-minute superb performance against Manchester City at Wembley should have the deciding factor as to whether you persevere with him as your manager or not. This should have been decided way before that, and there is no way that simply winning one game of football should decide a manager's future. Yeah. There is something, though, potentially that is more positive from a Manchester United perspective. Not rushing, taking your time, making sure that the decision that you ultimately come to is the correct one, rather than rushing it, rather than saying, right, we're going to sack him, or we're going to persevere. Actually making sure that you let the dust settle on the season, you make sure that all emotion is removed from the decision-making process, and you, hopefully, from a Manchester United perspective, come up with the correct decision as to whether he stays or whether he goes.
I think the only issues I have with that are you're still dictated to by the marketplace. So it's all good to say we're going to take our time, but players are going to get sold that you might want to buy, or that the new manager, if you are going to get a new manager, might want to sign, for example. It shouldn't be all about the new manager. We know they've brought in some big names in terms of their recruitment. They'll be looking at very specific targets, and it doesn't matter probably who the manager is. Those are going to be the players that they want to bring into the football club. But I still think you do need to make a decision as to whether Erik Ten Hag is going to stay or he's going to go. And your planning needs to be based around the kind of football that you're going to play.
That's absolutely, I absolutely
under whoever
agree.
The new manager would be. So
I absolutely agree with that. Do you think it could also be linked to the fact that this summer feels like one of the worst summers to ever be looking for a new manager? Like, if you think about
worst.
It's the worst.
I think it's one of the best.
To be looking for a new manager. This has got to be the worst summer to ever be looking for a new manager.
But look how many managers are available. Look how many managers you just could go out there and say, tomorrow, do you want to be our new manager?
Look how many top clubs have struggled to find the correct manager. I mean, the geezer that's just got relegated with Burnley has gone to one of the biggest clubs in the world. You've got Enzo Maresca going into Chelsea, who's never managed in the Premier League before. You've got Arne Slot going into Liverpool, which, let's face it, is fairly uninspiring.
That doesn't make it a bad time to be looking for a new manager.
Of course,
Liverpool will argue they got the manager they wanted. So will Chelsea. So will Bayern Munich.
No. I don't.
They would argue that.
They would argue and incorrectly, or they'd lie to you. It can't be. There is no way that Arne Slot would have been Liverpool's dream choice. We know that Liverpool's dream choice was Xabi Alonso, and they didn't get him. There is no way that Chelsea could have prioritised Enzo Maresca. That just can't be the case. This is a terrible summer to be looking for a new manager, simply because the amount of jobs available, big jobs that are available.
Thomas Tuchel's available. Mauricio Pochettino is available at this point in time. Hansi Flick just went to Barcelona. He was available until a couple of weeks ago, 10 days ago.
That's another example of jobs available, though.
Managers available.
Managers available to a degree, but some of the managers that you're suggesting here, yes, they have a good track record, but Thomas Tuchel comes with a huge amount of problems. Tuchel.
Okay, but you don't have to go and get him specifically.
No, but
there are still a number of managers out there.
Hugh, realistically, Manchester United are talking about Gareth Southgate, Thomas Frank, and Kieran McKenna. It's a terrible summer to be looking for a manager if they are the managers that you are linked with.
But that's on the club. That's on the club. They could go out and try and get any other manager they want. But if you're Manchester United, you can go out and get virtually any manager in football if you're going to offer them the right money. So you don't have to go out and get one of those three managers. So you're just really disappointed by the targets. But ultimately, it doesn't make it a bad summer to go and get a manager.
When you think about the big jobs that are available, big enticing jobs for a manager. I'm not saying that the Manchester United job, you could easily argue that the Manchester United job is one of the most highly coveted jobs in world football. But taking on that job at the moment does feel like a bit of a poison chalice, particularly when, until recently, the Bayern Munich job was available. The Barcelona job seemed to be available. The Liverpool job seemed to be available. The Chelsea job seemed to be available. Some of the biggest jobs in world football were actually available. And the managers that come with that prestige, as good as they can be, they got problems. Like Thomas Tuchel's trajectory since, say, winning the Champions League with Chelsea, he spent less and less time at every club that he's gone to, and it has got more and more fraud at every club he's been at.
We're going to take your calls on Manchester United. 03717 223344. Me personally, I expected news regarding Erik Ten Hag's future by now, whether it's positive or negative for him, for the football club, however you want to define it. Either way, I expected us to know what the future direction was going to be. Slightly concerned that the review is taking so long because they had time to judge Erik Ten Hag and his talents, to judge the players in the squad. They've been there now long enough that they could have made this decision by now. And the fact that they haven't made it quick enough, in my opinion, is slightly concerning. So we have been debating during the break whether Manchester United should move on from Erik Ten Hag, whether something should have been said from Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos during this period of time, either in support or, of course, the executive decision to get rid of Erik Ten Hag should have come by now. In terms of the summer preparations, I tend to think that, firstly, Erik Ten Hag probably should have been let go. I don't think he's been good enough. Either way, I think we should have had some confirmation over the direction of the football club. Maybe no news is good news for Erik Ten Hag. We want your say on it. 03717 223344. You look like you quickly wanted to say something.
I did. I just felt like your appraisal of Erik Ten Hag was slightly harsh there. Just slightly. I think, firstly, the actual managers that you're linked with, I think Erik Ten Hag is a better manager than all of them. I think that he has won silverware in 2 consecutive seasons. I think that you are in Europe. You beat Manchester City at Wembley, and he's done it all with a ferocious injury.
Would you replace him for Thomas Tuchel?
Thomas Tuchel
Yes
is
or
a
no?
better
Just
manager.
yes or no?
No, but it's more
Would you replace him
complex.
for-
It's not
no,
as
just a
binary
yes
as
or no?
Okay,
'Cause we
yes.
got callers.
To
Okay.
do it like this, yes.
And
But it's way more
Mauricio
complex.
Pochettino?
Pochettino, probably not.
No, okay. All right, let's get to the callers. Jamie's up first. Manchester United fan, good evening.
Hi, how you doing, guys? All right?
Good, mate.
Doing
You?
okay. Expected a bit of news from Manchester United by now, though. Not going to lie. What about you?
I think everybody's panicking. Look, if you look at the last, 4, 5, 6 windows when the season finishes, nothing happens at United quickly. Radcliffe has gone in, and to be fair to him, to his credit, very, very quickly worked on the director side of things. You've got Dan Ashworth, who's still hopefully to come into the club. Look, in my opinion, the league form was not good enough this year. But what you have to remember is, as much as people bang on saying everybody has injuries, we had about 65 different cases of injury this season. And what we saw against Manchester City, the best club team in the world, arguably one of them, is that actually on our day, when the players are fighting for Ten Hag and they're playing for him, you can't sack the guy after winning the FA Cup.
I can't have it, Jamie. I can't have it.
You can't sack him after the FA Cup. You've got him into Europe, right? He's getting the deadwood out. Let's be frank, right? Casemiro, Varane, Anthony Martial, there's £1 million a week in wages just there.
He signed one of those players for 70 million quid.
He did, absolutely. And the season before that, before he came into United, he was great. Last season, he was fantastic. His legs have gone. I don't care if you're Mystic Meg. You can't decide. You can't think to yourself, right, well, next season that player is going to be no good. You don't sign players thinking in a year, 2 years, they're going to lose their legs or they're going to be no good.
Well, if they're 30 years old, you're taking a risk, aren't you? You give a 5-year contract to a 30-year-old, you're taking a risk.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. But who else was there to replace? Who else was there at the club to come in at the time? Unfortunately, they're getting rid of the likes of James Garner. I really didn't like the fact they sold Garner. To be honest,
Jamie, can I ask you a question here, Jamie? If you didn't win the FA Cup, let's just say that Manchester City had won that FA Cup 2-1, a tight game. You played very well, but ultimately Manchester City won the double. Would you say that you need to sack him?
No, and honestly, no, because if you look at the club since Alex Ferguson has left, and I don't want to bang on about Sir Alex because that's what everybody does. They focus on the fact that since Ferguson has gone. What you've got to look at is the development in that squad. In terms of the club, in terms of the way that the club want to run, youth being the product. You look at the players he has brought through in his 2 seasons, just 2 seasons, right? Klopp needed more than 2 seasons. Yeah, Ferguson when he first came in. All right, I'm talking about Ferguson now. He needed more than 2 seasons. He needed 4 or 5. This is not a quick fix. It's not going to be. But with Radcliffe bringing in the right footballing people, and that's the key thing. The Glazers can run businesses. They're good businessmen, but they don't know football. This club have not had anyone at the helm who know football for the last 10 years.
Okay,
basically.
Jamie, appreciate your call. Sorry to cut you off there. We're going to get to a few more people. Very good call to get us started on Manchester United this evening. Michael is also a United fan. Good evening. Have you been expecting Erik Ten Hag to stay or go?
I don't know, because the right people are not in place at the minute, are they? Brada's not there. Ashworth's not there. And I don't think nobody at Man United right now has a clue which way to go. The manager we've been linked with, they come with problems. Tuchel is one who comes in massive problems. Poch has got problems. Southgate, he was mentioned and obviously been linked. He's got problems because, like I saw the other night with England, he wasn't very clever, was he? He wasn't very dominant in that team. So I'm thinking, well, if you came to Man United, what are you going to be doing? Playing this sort of gash football 45 minutes? No. The problem you're going to have to sit with Ten Hag, I think. Like it or not, there's no one else better than him at the minute.
Thomas Tuchel is most certainly better than Erik Ten Hag. I don't even think that's negotiable, is it? He does come with other problems. There are issues.
If you work with Tuchel, he's the same as Buddy Mourinho, Conte. There you go. Those three just like bad apples.
I just can't see it for Eric Ten Hag. I think we are very much guilty of running away with the FA Cup final. I thought Manchester United played brilliantly well. I think lots of credit goes to Eric Ten Hag for that and the way that he set the team up, but it was one match.
Yeah, but that's life,
you just
isn't
can't
it?
judge your manager on one match. If I was terrible at this job, wait, hold on, that's just give me a second. Just give me a second on that one. If I wasn't that good at this job, right, for all but one show, you would still hate me.
No,
People would be saying get rid of him.
No, but Hugh, I think beating Manchester City in that way, in that context, it really is huge. Winning the FA Cup is always historic. It always matters.
No, you just can't base it on one.
But you can
one
when you
game.
think about Manchester United icons over the years. Like, if I'm correct here, Norman Whiteside is a player that I've constantly heard of in Manchester United folklore. The reason is because he won Manchester United the FA Cup.
But listen, you're putting it in totally different context. I'm not saying that Eric Ten Hag won't have a legacy at Manchester United because he's won 2 trophies at the club and he won't be well regarded by fans. But we're talking about making a decision for the future of the football club, and you have to base that on the body of work.
Okay, let's play a game.
Whether or not he's seen as in a positive light by the fans is by the by.
Is there anyone that you would say stick with Ten Hag, or do you believe that regardless Ten Hag has to go? So, for example, if it becomes a straight shootout, a binary choice, Thomas Frank or Eric Ten Hag, what's your answer?
I believe the football club over the last 5 to 10 years has been far too quick to reward mediocrity. That's the reality when it comes to players, when it comes to people working in the hierarchy of the club, and when it comes to managers.
What about if it becomes Gareth Southgate?
They haven't set the standards of an organisation of their size. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos were meant to start doing that. They started to hire people with very big reputations in the game that they believe were the best in class that they could find for their organisation. Now, are you going to tell me that when it comes to the manager's position, they shouldn't do the same? When it comes to the players that they're going to sign, they shouldn't do the same.
But then it's not mediocre what he's done. Winning the FA Cup, winning back-to-back, having back-to-back seasons of silverware.
Performance in the Premier League, which is the bread and butter.
Okay, well, in terms of rewarding mediocrity, if we were to replace Eric Ten Hag with Gareth Southgate, that would be rewarding mediocrity, wouldn't it?
I understand your point on who might be coming in, but I still think there are better candidates out there. I'm not going to say hire Eric Ten Hag or Roberto De Zerbi or Kieran McKenna, but if you believe that the football club needs a change in the manager's dugout and you believe that there is someone who might not have the reputation of even Eric Ten Hag, but can still take you on to the next level, then it's incumbent on you to appoint that person.
The only manager.
We all laugh at Bayern Munich for appointing Vincent Kompany, but if in that boardroom they truly believe that he is the manager of the future for that football club and can take them to another level, then it's on them to appoint him, which they've done. Now, I'm not going to say that I want Manchester United to appoint Kieran McKenna or Roberto De Zerbi, but if there's a belief that any of these managers, Gareth Southgate, Graham Potter, is going to take the club to the next level, they've done their due diligence and they believe that, then I'll support them.
In the way that Arsenal did with Arteta,
and I will support them in making that decision. But you're right. If you just go, well, do you want Kieran McKenna? No, he hasn't got the CV to take the job at Manchester United, so it's an immediate no. But if those people with the qualifications truly believe that he can take the club forward, then I won't say no.
Factoring everything in, the only manager that I can think of that is a legitimate and realistic target is Thomas Tuchel, that is better than the existing manager at Manchester United. Everyone else is a downgrade from Eric Ten Hag.
Even Pochettino?
Pochettino is fairly underwhelming.
So you're not underwhelmed by Eric Ten Hag?
I'm not underwhelmed by Eric Ten Hag's almost Velcro approach to silverware, whereas it feels like Mauricio Pochettino is allergic to silverware.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.